Greetings, all. It's Dr. Bankhead here at the Struggle in Thinking Out Loud. And I'm hoping that you're having a positive and productive day. The topic of this video, again, I'm rambling on, and this time I'm going to ramble on a little bit more when it comes to distinction between mythology and religion. And I'm going to admit that I'm most familiar with the Abrahamic religions, and those would be Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. All of these three are religions based on Abraham and his many sons. We are told in the Bible that his sons Ishmael and Isaac went in different ways, and that Ishmael is the father of Islam, and Isaac was the Christian son. So, or rather, Isaac was the son through whom Christianity was birthed. Let's put it that way. Anyway, you'll notice today there's a lot of warring, I'll say, between the believers of these different religious paths. And you would be surprised that the genesis of all three of them is the same individual. I had an interesting experience as a teacher. I may have mentioned it before, but I will mention it again. I mention it as often as I can. I had a student who, make it simple, was illiterate. And I sought to instruct him on the Civil War. And in doing so, I was playing some educational videos. And one of them, the historian interviewed was asked, how did the slave owners feel about having their slaves to learn the Christian religion? And the historian's response, which I will never, ever forget, was the ministers were happy to have their slaves learn the Christian religion because it made them more docile and easier to control. And when I heard that, it went off in my head like a mini explosion. It explained so many things to me. So many of the questions I had regarding religions was summed up very, very, very tidily with the idea that it was a tool of control, and it rendered individuals to be docile like sheep. How ironic. And I reflected upon the times when Martin Luther King would meet with other ministers, and the ministers would take to their pulpits, and rather than the focus of their sermon being a passage from the Bible, the sermons were about the politics, the political climate, and who the members of the congregation must vote for. And that had me thinking. I'll let you guess what I was thinking. Anyway, I decided that I would look into the definitions of some words that we use when it comes to our religious beliefs. Belief was from the late 12th century, and it means to have confidence in a person or a thing, or faith in a religion. And the Old English, which came from the German, belief means to hold dear, to esteem, to trust, to care, to desire, and to love. To know, alternatively, means to be able to distinguish generally, to perceive or understand as a fact or truth. So you see here, a belief is holding dear or esteeming, having confidence in a person or a thing, but there's no basis necessary for that confidence. And to know is to distinguish generally, and that's to perceive or understand as a fact or truth. So to know is apparently stronger than believing. In fact, in medical terms, a belief is what people have when they take a placebo. And a placebo is as effective as the person's belief. So, if you have a raging headache and you reach to take an aspirin, but everything in the bottle are little white pills, and they're sugar pills, but it's got aspirin on the label, and you take it, you believe that it's an aspirin, and your headache goes away. But you never took an aspirin. You only took a placebo. But knowing is when the bottle says aspirin, it's actually aspirin inside. Faith is the assent of the mind to the truth of a statement for which there is incomplete evidence. So you have no evidence of it, but in your mind, you agree to hold on to it as if it were complete. Hope is the expectation of something desired with or without basis, trust, confidence, and willful desire. A tradition is a statement, belief, or practice handed down from generation to generation. It comes from the Old French, which means transmission, presentation, handing over, which comes from the Latin, which means delivering up, to surrender, or handing down. So tradition is something that has been handed down from generation to generation, and not necessarily based in fact or truth. But today, people are continuing in family traditions, religious traditions, cultural traditions, and with or without applying any critical thinking to the traditions they're passing down. Now, I am not here to say that the tradition is good or the tradition is bad, because what seems good or bad to me may seem better or worse to you. I can't decide for you. You can't decide for me. The only distinction is the level of awareness. This is Dr. Bankhead at The Struggle in Thinking Out Loud, and I'll talk to you in the next video.